So we're just sitting here under this tree. This is what we do in the South. This reminds me of the South. It feels like we're in southern Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee right now. But we're Black Box. Yeah, so I'm here with my friends. We're all black. All varieties, because we come in all types. And we're just going to talk about oppression. Let's start with oppression. Oppression sounds like it's a thing I keep hearing about. Like, there's so many groups of people right now that are talking about being oppressed, and then there's people who are fighting for those who are oppressed. And so one thing I've experienced recently is the people who are fighting for those who are oppressed take on that oppression. That's something that I've noticed recently. Like, they take it on as their own, and then something I've been noticing is, like, I've done it too. In the 90s, like, I was like, abolish apartheid. And I was in high school here in America. But I was like, I would take on that fight. So there's like a way that I'm noticing where I have to really remind myself that it's okay to fight for others, but remember how much power I do have in that same fight. So let's talk about oppression, just like what it means to you. Like, when you hear oppression, what does it mean?
I think for me, when I hear oppression, it was a word I heard a lot growing up, and it's a word I heard a lot growing up, and it's funny because neither of my parents talked about it a lot. Like, my mom's Italian and my dad's black, but neither of them ever raised me to believe that, like, the odds were going to be stacked against me simply because of that. Like, they for sure prepared me that, like, some people are racist, there will be prejudice, but there was not a strong mentality of you are oppressed because of the color of your skin. So I was thinking about, like, where did I first develop that idea, and where did it come from? And I think before working together on Black Box, I would have said oppression is, like, systemic racism, and the fact that we still aren't treated equal in subtle ways, and, like, we can't get certain kinds of jobs, and it's all based on this one detail of our race, and that felt so suffocating for me, because that's never going to change. Like, I'm never going to not look black. And so I was like, is that it? Like, is that really, like, the best I can hope for? And it just had me feel kind of dead inside, honestly. And it wasn't until I had to kind of, like, swing between both extremes, meaning the fight of, like, oppression, equal rights. As a black woman, I am deeply oppressed and I have to fight extra hard for my rights. And then I had to swing all the way to, like, oppression is total nonsense and, you know, doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And it's like there's a middle ground of some sort where I think I had to swing between both extremes and then find this middle ground that says, like, oppression is real. It does come up. Things are a lot better than they were before any of us were alive, but a lot of our parents were alive. And oppression is real, and it is not an absolute thing. It is not something I am, like, at the mercy of and have no control or choice or say over. And when a challenging situation does come up and it happens to do with race or my economic class or my upbringing, like, can I use it? Like, can I actually use it to become more resilient, to, like, be stronger, to work with challenges, to actually work with my mind in the face of challenge, and then to come out of it feeling like it grew me in some way. And so that's how I work with it now. But I mean, I can't even think of the last time I really felt oppressed by anything with my race.
Yeah, it's such a tricky topic because, like you said, it is real. It does happen, and it has happened. I think it's important when we talk about it to acknowledge, like, all these things have happened, and there's, like, what my concern is that there's, like, a trance of oppression that we still live under, even if we don't feel the same oppressive moments. And so it's like acknowledging, yes, this happened, and now what?
A trance meaning?
like we're just like we're regurgitating things we've heard. Like we hear it on the news, 24-hour news cycle. We hear about all the oppressive moments. Even my parents, my dad loves the documentaries on Christianity and how it oppressed black people and the government and how it's oppressing black people and just like the whole history of it, which is real. But then when you get into it, how is it affecting you now?
Right.
I think is like the question. And then what are the benefits? And that's a really charged part because it's like, how can you say there are benefits to oppression, but what wouldn't you have like if you weren't oppressed? Like if oppression never happened in your life, would you have the things you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's how I grew up. It was there were just common phrases like you have to work twice as hard as a black person to get where you're going, or they're never going to let you become X or Y because you're a black person, or it's really my mom used to say sometimes like it's really hard raising young black males because they're gonna end up in prison or etc. And
A lot of fear.
yeah, and it was like a narrative that I was living within, but I actually didn't particularly identify with it in a certain way, but it was a good out. Like when something bad happened, I remember I got pulled over by the cops like 3 times in a week. And my dad was super pissed off the first time. And then, the second and third time it was like, oh, it's because I'm black. That's why they're pulling me over. And maybe, maybe that is part of it. But it could be used as a reason things weren't working out. It could be used as a reason that there was misfortune, and I even remember I got really excited about when Barack Obama was running for president, and this is even before he was like acknowledged to be in the race, and I started volunteering for him and his campaign and making calls, and I remember telling some of the black people that I grew up with and my family. And a lot of them were like, why are you wasting your time? They'll never let us be president. They'll never vote us into the office. And then he started picking up steam and election night, and he gets elected, and I'm sitting in a mixed race neighborhood, and people are setting off fireworks, and there's Cracker Jacks going off in the street, and I remember calling some family members, and it was like the response was like, yeah, this is great, but they're gonna kill him. That's what they do to people like us in office. Like they're gonna kill. I'm like, but he just won the presidency.
Can we enjoy this right now?
Like we actually just this is the impossible. The impossible just happened, but we're already off to how we're still oppressed. And so something that I've always experienced with it is that's just like tenacious storyline that in many ways we're kind of wearing this blanket over ourselves saying I'm oppressed, and these are the reasons that my life isn't working out is because I'm oppressed.
Yeah, like you said, when you were talking like a learned helplessness, you said I don't remember exactly what you said, but you said it was a way out. It was like a reason not to try because you already knew you were going to fail. Like those are the things that we've been like, oh, I can't put my real name on this resume because they'll know that, or I can't call because they'll hear my voice and they'll know I'm black. There's like all these reasons not to try and then just assume that you couldn't do it. That's something that made me think of.
Has that kind of experience, have you had that kind of experience where you're like, I can't do this or I can't do that?
In my own mind, yeah. So I grew up in the South, and I just assumed that there was places I wasn't supposed to go. If I was out in an area like this, and there was a little store, and it was after dark, I probably wouldn't be there. And so when I moved to New York, I had that same mentality. I moved to a all-Jewish neighborhood in New York, and I was like, I'm probably not supposed to be in this area. Then I would go to upstate New York, which felt a lot like this. And there was these little stores, these little country stores, and I'd go in there thinking it would be the same type of assumed racism that I would experience in the South, and would go in expecting to be discriminated against. Or if someone looked at me like in a confused way, I was like, it's because I'm black. I'm not supposed to be in the store. You don't want me here. You don't even want my money. And I just came up with all these stories instead of just, what I now know is that I could go in there and just assume I'm wanted and act like that. And just like be that way. Just be the person that I had this story about a coffee shop that I tell because I go in, and it's the same with restaurants. Like me and my friends would go in restaurants, and we'll go in a restaurant where there's not a lot of black people, and the server or the receptionist would say, can we help you? I'm like, yeah, get us some menus, and then with some angst, because I'm like, we're here to eat. You don't think black people know how to come to restaurants and read menus? So I have that same mentality. I went to a coffee shop and walked up, and a woman kind of looked at me confused, and she was like, can I help you? Not in a what can I get you, but can I help you? And I was like, I'm going to show her. I want a quad Americano with all oat milk, and I tried to make it all fancy and churched it up. And in my mind, I'm like, she doesn't think black people know about coffee, and I'm going to order this coffee and show her that we are smart too. And there's just a way when I look back at it, I was like, what if I just looked at it as she was happy or surprised to see me? She may not see a lot of black people in the coffee shop, but not like in a.
And what did we say the first time you told this story?
Well, that she was really excited to see me, and she was speechless.
In what way? Excited in what way?
You tell me what?
Excited in what way?
What?
And so it's the same thing with the restaurants. We could just be like, hey, they're excited to see us.
Did you enjoy the coffee?
I certainly did, and I went back.
You just thought you were hot.
Oh yeah.
Because that happens too. That's one of the benefits of oppression, I believe.
Oh, there's that too. Yeah. There's a certain electricity in being around what you're not supposed to be around.
What is
especially in the South? I think especially in the South.
Because the coffee thing
that was
happened in the
that
South.
was back home. That was in North Carolina. Yeah.
What is a certain electricity? What does that mean?
There's anything that's taboo that you're told you're to stay away from, and you're not supposed to touch. When you get close to it, there's a automatic, I think, desire to see what it's all about.
I mean, I think in the stories that my parents tell of when they first met and started dating, that was a lot of it. They don't use that language. Neither of my parents have ever said there's a lot of electricity. They don't talk like that,
Right.
but they have said there was a unexpected draw, or there was we're so opposite in every way, not just their skin color, because my mom is white and my dad's black, but their personalities. And my mom's loud Italian American, kind of in your face in a fun way usually, and my dad's kind of quiet, happy-go-lucky, a little more reserved, friendly, not very aggressive typically. And they have always talked about there being this drawing of opposites, and that it made no sense for them to be together in any way, shape, or form, but it was the thing they both kept returning to and feeling drawn toward. Yeah.
So I think you're saying there's some benefits to that oppression.
It seems like it.
And one being the experience of, we're not calling it electricity, what are we calling it?
Your explanation of it was great.
The experience of desire, or for something unknown.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we crave knowing the unknown as humans, and most of us are also kind of terrified of it. And if we're put in any situation where there is unknown, we're never mind. But there's that wanting of it, There's something else he said. I'm trying to remember what it made me think of. Oh, I'm not going to remember, so someone else can go.
This makes me think about humor also. Just in those moments where we were all mad about the way we were looked at, or we thought we were being looked at. Are there moments where you've had to, or where you could see yourself having humor, where you might have been triggered Like, what's an example of a place you get triggered around race and how you may have had humor or could have humor around it?
What you got?
Well, I mean, I think for me, it's like it was less so before. It was less so, you know, let's say 6 years prior, like the recent 6 years prior, where I didn't really think about it all that much. Or I didn't really give credence to it. But when people would be like, "Oh, you're blacker than than I've ever felt you before," and I'm like, "Well, what does that mean?" And where I had to like go in and actually see what that meant, and for me, like what I actually really feel like I understood was like there's just a place in general where I'm allowing I'm allowing more of myself to actually be seen, and I'm actually allowing a lot of myself to be discovered by myself, to actually discover who I am. And that spot in these previous 6 years, when I have heard that spot that was being touched was like, it was just saying, it felt like it was just poking a spot that was like, oh, you're actually not showing people who you are, when it was this very deep thing that I wanted for people to know who I am. I mean, and then like on a certain level too, I think there was like some pride or something where it was like, okay, wait a minute. I'm not around a lot of black people right now. I'm probably the blackest person that you guys know, and yet, whatever that means, the blackest person that you guys know, and yet I'm only now, the blackest that you've seen me. Like, what is that? And so, the place where I feel like I can play with it now is just like being blacker, just like being
Like cranking it up even
just
more.
just crank it up, just like whatever wild and out stuff that's in here is just like wants to come out. That I might just do with like my sister, because like when we're together, we just, whatever's coming out is just coming out. Then I will bring a little bit of that out, and sometimes I just like test it out just to see if like, okay, well, this wants to come out of my mouth today. We're gonna see what it is, and then people are just like, oh my God, that feels good, and I was like, okay, that's cool. But just like cranking it up a little bit and letting what's in here actually out. Yeah.
You made me think of just all the stuff I used to be offended by. Like when, like, Kevin Hart, stop acting like that. We can't look that way. Or like all these meme videos that would come on. It's like, oh, you can't represent us that way. You make us look bad. You make us look like buffoons or coons or, all these like derogatory terms.
What's the Kevin Hart one? I'm just wondering what it is for you.
It's like the loud, the yelling, the da 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 da. This like slapstick. It's like this old slapstick kind of like minstrel. Minstrel. And it's not just like that's comedy. Yeah. But I used to be so like, we can't be minstrels. We can't. And now there's like, we can just crank it up and have fun with it. That's been a big change in a way to find like humor with stuff that's just supposed to be funny and not worry about like what outside culture thinks or even inside.
That's a big one. Yeah.
I was watching an Instagram, maybe even yesterday, and Kevin Hart, he's like, I've never been a bitch, nigga. And then he jumps into this hole in like Jamaica or something, like one of those cave like holes down. Just like 4 feet tall and just disappears down there. And I was thinking like just saying stuff like that, like having fun with it. Or, like, but there was a time like you do that in a movie theater or whatever, and like everyone's gonna, the air is gonna come out of the room. Yeah. And it's like, is something popping off? Like, like depending on how old you are. But yeah, I guess it's, at some point just embracing both the stereotypes and the fun of the stereotypes. I was also thinking about how sometimes we're like in a story about who we are more than we even know. Like I was at the hardware store down the road, and I remember thinking, I was walking down the aisle and I literally just started thinking, I'm about to steal something. I feel like I'm going to steal something here. And then I turn around and the storekeeper is just staring at me. And I'm like, am I thinking that, or is he thinking that? Or like, am I responding to that dynamic with that expectation? I've stolen maybe like 2 things in my life. But I really did feel like I was a thief in that moment. And then I went down to the end of the aisle, and he just like followed me, and he wasn't like, he was being totally obvious about the fact that he was concerned about me being in the store.
Excited to see you.
Yeah, and then I even turned to him, and I was like, can I help you?
You said that?
Yeah.
Jason, of course.
And I remember feeling, but back in the day, you know, like I wouldn't have felt that way. I would have been like, that's oppression, you know?
Like you were able to not take on the projection of it.
Yeah, like I actually thought it was kind of fun, where I was like, oh, this is him thinking I'm something. And but my body feels like that anxiety of someone, you know, who's
up to something.
Of who's up to something. And so I wonder a bit about that, where people can't actually separate what is someone else and their perspective versus their own feelings. You know?
It's funny. I mean, I don't have it often, but I like lately. I've noticed when I do. I was in this super small store. I went to deliver some stuff on the coast. It's a super small store. There's only the 2 ladies that worked in there, and it's like one of those like general stores where they have like some kind of like nice fancy stuff, because you can't. It's going to take you, I don't know, like at least half an hour to go somewhere else nice where you're going to get stuff. And it's also like kind of touristy. And I was like, well, this is the second time I've been here. I've seen no other black person. I'm gonna go in this store. I'm gonna check it out because I want to see what's in here. And I went in, and I had that thought. I was like, am I gonna steal something? Or do they think I'm gonna steal something? But I caught the thought, and then I kind of looked over, because there's a way where like I always, as much as I can have in my peripheral vision, I will take in, so I know what's actually happening around me. And I knew exactly where they were in the store, and I heard them talking. I didn't hear a tone of voice change. They were not paying me any mind, and I was like, okay, I got to stop this thought right now before it actually becomes a thing. And I did, and I just kept shopping, but I kept them in my attention. And then I went and paid for the thing, and the lady was like, everybody loves these things. This is great. And I was like, that's great. I got to go, though. And then I just left. And it was like, it was just more awkward for me than anything else, just watching that whole like scenario happen. Where like, I don't think they gave a crap about who I was and like where I was from and like what color my skin was. It was just literally like, oh, here's some money coming in. This is great. This thing sells a lot. Maybe we should stock more of these in. That literally seemed like that could have been their train of thought. There was no like, can I help you? There was no like, do you need anything? There was no weird questions. There was no helpful questions. They were just going about their business. And but it's now, I'm kind of now able to like catch those thoughts of like, is this me? Like, is this me? Is this them? Usually I feel like I know if it is me, and then I can stop the thought, and then I actually could just kind of adjust the way I am in that location. It's super weird though. I just wonder like how much of that is actually happening. Yeah.
There was something you said a while ago, but it had me think of like 3 different points in succession. You were like, you know, I go into a restaurant and there's not a lot of black people in there except for me and my friends. And then I've been thinking about this one because I hear a lot of stories start this way in like when people share about race. And I was like, aren't we like 13-14% of the population? Like like, yeah, you're not going to see a bunch of black people everywhere, okay? Unless you're living in a chocolate city. Do you know what I mean? Like, in most places, in most ways,
Fair.
we're going to see a lot of
Right.
people that aren't black. And, like, for me, I get that that's the norm because I grew up not being around a lot of black people at once. But it's something I've been thinking about where it's, like, where we don't, like, not tune into, like, the logic or anything, but even just kind of, like, in moments like that where it's just so easy to get activated about feeling like you're being treated differently, how do we, like, slow down and just kind of, like, attune to the reality of just, like, what's actually happening before the thoughts get crazy, before the projections can stick. And I think the reason why, when you said it, I was, like, bristling because I've been reading a lot about, like, college campuses that want to go back to all black housing and like people of color only spaces and things that I'm like, okay, there's something about it that could be positive or useful, sure, but the way it's always being written about or talked about is like, I need this for my mental health, and I'm like,
Right.
no, like being surrounded by only people who look like you and maybe think like you as a result of looking by you is not going to do anything positive for your mental health at all. Like actual power comes from being able to go into any location or space and be yourself. And then it's like, no, I want to be in this black only space all the time. Like, sure, black only spaces are super awesome. I went to a predominantly black festival for the first time like 3 years ago, and I was like blown away. I was like, oh my god, I've never been around this many black people in my entire life. And to live my whole life from that place is just like
Right.
avoidance and fear, and there's no power in that. There's like, so you just never have to rub up against another viewpoint or uncomfortable situation.
Right.
And then the real delusional part is you can still have that in a room
It's
of
still
black
gonna
people.
happen.
Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
So there's
for
just
sure.
a certain like projecting the enemy outward and wanting a space where there's zero, like, you know, ability to feel challenged or uncomfortable. And I was thinking, like, I was like, okay, I haven't been in college for 10 plus years, but if colleges turn into that or play or give into that game, we're going to have a next generation of incredibly fragile people who have no idea how to wrestle things out or be in conflict or engage with anyone different than them because they just want to live their lives from this place of a delusion of a safe space. And I'm just like, I can't. Like, I'm a no. I can't. It drives me nuts. And then another thing that I was thinking about, oppression, when you were like, oh, the benefits, and I was like, I don't know if this falls into a benefit, but one of the biggest pitfalls of the argument of oppression and being oppressed just because we're black is like how much power that attributes to someone else. Like, it could be white people, it could be college admission offices, I don't know, fill in the blank, but like, it's kind of like projecting a god status to this person or group that you think has that much power over you, that they can like oppress you and keep you small, that you can only act a certain way. And I'm just like as someone who's done that, when I step outside of it, I'm like, that is insane. Like that, like, why would we want to give that much like false power to anything outside of ourselves? And I think that's like probably the biggest point about oppression that I just like cannot, it drives me nuts when I hear it. It's just,
I wonder, one sort of other side of that though is where if you grew up around black people, and then I remember when I became a lawyer, and then I like walked into a room full of like white lawyers from the age of like 45 to 70, and like I was like, oh shit, like, this is a whole other game. And like, you know, and like your body's like having all kinds of reactions in that situation where you're trying to understand how to fit in to a different culture, different environment. different expectation for conversations. Like, did you read the Wall Street Journal, this morning to even know what these people are talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, like, say you're not used to talking like, colloquial TV English,
You could just say white.
white, like CNN or whatever, like, like how do you get along in those environments when you're using slang or using a language that's more, just a rhythm that's more comfortable to you, and like you're going to be judged like just off the bat.
Right.
And so like how do you bridge that gap of being able to it's just a big chasm to cross.
But why do you have to?
Because in your mind, the thing that you are lacking, the reason you're oppressed, is because they have something, white people,
Uh-huh.
that you're lacking, and you can't get it unless you become like them, or you do it in a way that is different than that. But to get into that club,
Right.
would require that you start taking on behaviors of
Totally.
sort of like mainstream white culture.
We've all, well, I won't speak for all of us, but I'm pretty sure we've all done
Yeah,
that to some
absolutely.
degree. And
Yeah.
one of my hopes for what we're creating is that people don't feel like they have to do that anymore. Because I've been stopping and asking myself, do I actually even want those things out there that I'm like, so, because I spent like, I don't know, 22 years trying to pass for dark-skinned Sicilian. Do you know what I mean? Like, genuinely. I mean, like, to a point of delusion. Like, and then now I am like, do I even want that? Like, what? Like, the thing I was chasing, the thing that I was like, I will give anything to have that, and I will change everything about me to have it. Like, I had to start stopping and asking myself, do I even want it? And the more I do that, I'm like, no, I really don't. Like, not at the soul level. Like, my mind, sure. Like, I look at my pretty, skinny white girlfriends with their flowing hair and, their seemingly ease with, I don't even know what. I can't
Something
even.
life.
Something. Like, oh, yes, and then I'm like, I grew up being so bitter, resentful about that. Like, I've literally yelled at my mom for marrying outside of her own country. I said some terrible things to that woman. My God, I'm going to have to go back and clean those things up at some point. But, like, I look at it today and I'm like, I don't want to be that. There's nothing wrong with that. But, that's not what my soul is called to. That's not my actual expression. And so, like, if we did nothing else but create the feeling that no one felt like they had to do that. If you want to play with it, sure, try on other identities.
Right.
Fit yourself into things to see if they fit and it feels good, and if not, get out. Like I'm all for the play and exploration of it, but I actually want to create something that has people realize I don't have to cross any chasm. I can go into any space and be myself and be genuine and actually feel good about it. How we do that, we are figuring out. But that's the thing I want us to do,
Yeah, and for sure there's examples of that, like Nas becoming a venture capitalist.
Crushing it.
And I wonder, like he's someone who, I guess he's had enough success in one realm that he's like, you know what, like I feel good about myself, I can go do it over here. And then, but like, I don't know, I guess at the bottom of it, there's just a real struggle to actually know who you are.
Absolutely.
And, in that wrestle of, oh, I sold out here.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
I
how
didn't
we find
express
out.
here. Oh, I'm like completely avoiding these situations over here. You kind of like, and it's painful to do all that. Like it's painful to sell out. It's painful not to express yourself. It's painful to like spend your life hiding.
And it's painful to keep looking at it too.
And it's painful
Yeah, when
to
you see it, you're like,
oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And, like, in my definition, that's power. Like, every time we catch one of those things, every time we
For sure.
turn toward it and face it, it just, for me, it gets me closer and closer to being able to, like, be a little more myself. Do you know what I mean? Like without those things. So I have no regrets for any of my experiences trying to pass for dark-skinned Sicilian, because it taught me so much about who I actually am and what's actually in here. And so if I didn't have those things to rub up against, you know, like, I'm grateful for them genuinely now. At the time, not so much. But now, yes. And it's like, I don't think we're trying to eliminate those things completely, but if there is a way to, like, go into those places with more consciousness, for lack of a better word, where, like, you're going into trying to fit yourself into some box that might not fit. And you know when it doesn't stick and it's not working, you can come out. Like, if we could enter every terrain with that level of understanding, and, like, that's how we're going to learn, like, what our soul is actually comprised of, what this blueprint in here actually is, like, then it would just be fun. It wouldn't even have to feel torturous. It would just be fun.
I totally agree. It would be fun if you could always get back to yourself.
Right.
But if you don't even know how to do that, or if you don't know what that is,
Or that it's an option.
then it's like you go, 10 years down this road and you get all kinds of addictions, or
Totally.
all kinds of contorted
All
situations,
kinds of humanity.
and you like that shit ain't fun.
That's a whole other talk.
Yeah. But I think maybe getting back to oppression, like, that's it's like, because it's like the eye of a needle, it's like passing through the eye of a needle to not sell out, to not underexpress. And, like, when you do those things, you assume it's just all bad.
Yep.
Like it's just, it's bad to go join a corporation run by white people because you didn't like who you became in the process of it.
Like, you have to demonize it.
And so you
once your
demonize
eyes
the whole
open.
thing. Yeah. Or,
Yeah.
on this side, you're like, you never tried. You never tried to go do those things you wanted to do. And so you got to make it all bad so you can justify not trying. It's like being able to recover from shame, like however you ended up where you did. Maybe you ended up in jail because you were trying to, you were trying to play the white man's game, make a lot of money, but you could only do it the way you knew how.
Right.
Ended up in jail.
Right.
Or my story is more like I sold out to white culture and didn't really know who I was, and then became something that was kind of intolerable to myself. But then there's like a running shame about having left, a grief, I guess, about having done what I did, but then, like, being able to come back to myself and be like, that's just part of it. Like,
Yes.
it's part of it to just, like, lose yourself, to, like, then come back and find out, who you actually are.
Yeah. That's how you find out.
Yeah, and maybe that's kind of a message.
Yeah.
Is like you're gonna end up in some weird situations.
Prepare to lose yourself many times as you discover yourself.
Well, it feels like there's some. I don't like in general. If in general it feels like this, but somewhere like there may be like a deepening, like a deeper feeling of it because of where, like, Black people often end up, like, in jail or addicted or homeless. But, like, there feels like this thing there where it's like the point of your life is to get everything right and have it look a certain way. And if that doesn't happen at specifically every major moment, you have effed up, and you should be ashamed. Like, even if people are saying that you shouldn't be ashamed, there's something culturally that's like, you didn't hit this marker, you didn't get it right the first time, you didn't get it right the second time, you wound up somewhere where, like, you should just be ashamed of yourself because you just didn't get it right. There's no room to be human.
That's not even specific to black folk.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's-
There's just literally no room to be
We just
human.
have a particular flavor of it, but
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
I don't know anybody that doesn't
Right.
feel that way at some point in their life.
Right. And so then it's like it's a weird spot.
You know what though? It's like, I think and maybe the oppression of being a white person is that you're the one holding that
It's a taboo thing to
standard.
say. That's a taboo
You
thing
know,
to say.
like you're supposed to be the perfect one, and then everyone's
Give me
trying to
something
be.
to live up to.
Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
and then everyone around the world is trying to be a white American,
I want to be like you. And you're
Yeah.
like, why?
and it's like this impossible goal of, the American dream, house in the suburbs, kids in private school or whatever, just a whole perfect situation, and like, it's people do all kinds of things to try to have that.
Who decided that was fun? Like, who decided that was the thing that's the thing to do? I don't know, but we need to stop that. That's gotta stop.
Well, it might be for some people, but it's not for most people.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know. I think for the most part, the people who are like really, there's like a level where it's like, okay, you can get into these things and try them on. And for sure, for some people, they work. For sure,
Right.
that's what your soul is called to. I think for a lot of people, it's not.
Right.
And then
I agree.
it's like not every, like, there's like here's a box, let's go into this box. Here's that box, let's go into that box. Which box fits you? There's no boxes. You're just a human. Just figure it out. Figure out what your humanness means, and then go from there.
I think that's the whole journey to the soul. I
Yeah.
think that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's like you walk in and out of different scenarios and situations, and some of them fit for a long time, and then they don't, and then you're like, I have to figure it out now. Like I think that's part of I think that's just part of what life is.
Yeah.
It's like to have that journey to the soul of who you are is going to involve that warning. We can put a warning on the book we write. Warning.
Let yourself
Like,
be human.
this journey will involve a lot of pain and things that feel like you're messing up, and it is all bringing you back
It's
to
all good.
who you are. So like if we can just start with that disclaimer, we'll see how
That's all
people
good.
do, how we do.
The one thing I'm taking away from like this conversation and the thought that I had running through each of your shares was, because we talked about oppression a lot, but just in all the forms and all the things that kind of spawn off from it. And it's one of the biggest things is oppression. The biggest form of oppression is thinking you're oppressed, is one. And two would be, until you can laugh at it, it owns you. Whatever that it is. If it's going in a coffee shop and thinking you're not welcome, or if it's walking into a meeting full of lawyers that don't look like you and are like at a different place, like, and all those things, until you can actually like have humor, Kevin Hart jumping into that cenote, then it owns you, whatever that it is. That's what I'm taking. Yeah.
Yeah.